Welcome to a special edition of Crimewatch UK and to some very unusual appeals.
Tonight we'll be showing you the faces of some of Britain's most wanted criminals and why it's desperately important you help find them.
"20 years. And we'll show you some remarkable facts about what happened in that time, as well as challenging you to help find those most wanted faces. You'll see some of the notable successes too. But first, what they call a sticker. A case that's remained unsolved for all those 20 years, and indeed was the first reconstruction we ever showed. It's a macabre story made even more bizarre by this letter that was sent to the police by a man who claims to be the murderer. Do you recognise the style? It may have been written with a ruler and a mapping pen, and look in particular at those peculiar S's that are written in the form of exclamation marks. It's a bit like some computer shorthand. Now, the letter could be a decoy, it could be a hoax, but if you know who wrote it, you could save someone's life. In fact, now police fear that in the 20 years since, the culprit must have struck again, and probably repeatedly so. 2 decades ago, Chris Barnfather was a young detective in Nottinghamshire Constabulary. This remains the most emotionally draining case he has ever dealt with. All those years, he's stuck with it. The victim was Colette Eram. 20 years on, Chris reviews the original film and reveals new evidence.
Well, Colette was abducted from the side of the road. She was probably struck at that time. She certainly had a head injury which would support that. She was dragged into a vehicle. She would have been terrified. She was driven 2 miles up the road, probably fighting in the back of the vehicle. She was dragged from the vehicle where she had her clothing removed, and she was subjected to the most appalling and violent sexual attack. She was then strangled and she was left to die in a field a few miles from her home.
The police have built up a picture of the killer's movements from the letter and from corroborating evidence.
I was in a hut for hours waiting for a girl to return from horse riding. No one saw me.
About 5 miles from Keyworth, there are riding stables there. Young girls, predominantly, exercise the horses on a Sunday afternoon. Sometime before 4 o'clock on that particular Sunday, a man was seen loitering around an old hut, which is next to the stables. I say a man, I believe that's our man. Certainly there's evidence that that man was inside the hut. We found a piece of rag which was semen stained, which indicates he was there for some sort of sexual excitement, no doubt evoked by the young girls on horseback. He saw his opportunity when the Ford Fiesta turned up, stole it and drove away in the direction of Keyworth. This whole tragic sequence of events that led to Colette's brutalised death started with the theft of that motor vehicle. This individual spent over 3 hours in the Keyworth area, driving around, looking for a young girl. He certainly followed other young girls that afternoon. He made approaches to other young girls. They were fortunate. Colette wasn't. She left home shortly after 8. She was certainly seen at about 8:05 by friends who acknowledged her. She was seen again at 8:10 by people who knew her. At 8:15, only 5 minutes later, a resident heard screams outside of his home. Repeated screams and shouts of no. He went to the door. He could see nobody. He saw a vehicle driving away at speed. Nobody saw Colette Eram alive again.
What can I get you?
A pint of orange lemonade, please.
The Generous Britain's a small village pub about 5 miles from Keyworth. It doesn't entertain many passing customers, mostly local. He engaged in conversation with the landlady. That conversation tended to indicate he had some knowledge of the area. The landlady actually noticed while serving him that on the back of his right hand he had blood, quite visible blood stains in the creases of his hand. He appeared to have noticed that she noticed and was bothered by that.
Where's the toilet?
Oh, just back there.
When Colette was found to be missing, there was an extensive search conducted throughout the village by members of her immediate family and her boyfriend's family. That continued throughout the night, obviously with police assistance. At about 9:20 the following morning, police officers were called to a field on the outskirts of Keyworth, off Thirlby Lane, where a body of a young female had been found. Unfortunately, the grandfather and the brother of Colette saw officers attending and actually followed them onto the field area, and there they were to see the horrifying sight of Colette lying naked and brutalised in that field. A fact that the police have never released before, because we always like to hold a little bit back, is the fact that Colette had an item of clothing actually tied to her wrist. It wasn't an item that had been used in any way to restrain her or to incapacitate her. It was tied there almost as a sign to whoever found her. The way her body was posed has never been released before. She wasn't left with any dignity. She was left in a position which could only horrify anybody who stumbled across her body. The resting of her clothing had been thrown into a culvert, but an item of jewellery was missing, almost as if the offender had taken a trophy and had left his victim in a field displayed for all.
That was all 21 years ago. This is Colette's mother, Jackie Kirkby. 21 years, but presumably hasn't got any easier.
No, it hasn't. I don't think it ever does, and I think any mother would tell you the same thing. It's 21 years in October, and I remember it as if it was yesterday. You know, I go out and I see girls that Colette was at school with. They've got young children. I would probably be the same now, be a grandmother to children that Colette would possibly have had. It's very, very difficult. It's something that you never ever come to terms with. And the one person I think that really has suffered in all of this is my son. He actually saw Colette in that field, and I always remember him saying to me, "Mum, you didn't see the way she was lying there. I did." And he'll never forget that. He'll take that to his grave with him. And things like this, you never get over it. Well, it's just terrible, and I would never wish this on anyone.
And Chris, the frightening thing is, this isn't just an old case. This could be happening to other people. Perhaps not murder, but you think this man is a serial offender.
It's almost inevitable, I think, Nick, that this individual will have sexually assaulted before he killed Colette, and probably sexually assaulted since.
Now, we've got partial DNA, so if people have got any suspicions about somebody, you can easily eliminate. You've also got an EFIT, but you're very concerned that people shouldn't take this too literally, because there have been a lot of conflicting descriptions of the man.
Absolutely. Witnesses gave different descriptions at the time, and although it's maybe a backcloth for viewers to actually focus on, I'd actually ask them to try and connect maybe that image with, was this individual in the Keyworth area at the time, living there, maybe visiting there, maybe working there?
He obviously knew it, and the one thing that we do know is pretty accurate is the hair. He had sort of thick, curly black hair, was it, or dark hair anyway.
All the witnesses were very united on that issue.
He'd now be mid-40s or early 40s, perhaps around 40 years of age. We're not entirely sure. What about body height and height and that sort of thing?
Probably 5'10" muscular build.
So maybe putting on a bit of weight now. And as you say, he must have had local connections. He must have got there somewhere, somehow, if he didn't have his own car. And this fetish for stalking girls. Now, this is a behaviour he presumably exhibited at other stages and has exhibited since.
I would suspect so, yes. He clearly had followed a number of young girls around in the Keyworth area on that night before he actually found Colette.
So there'll be perhaps police officers elsewhere in the country, prison officers, psychiatric social workers, psychiatrists and so forth, people who may see somebody, and have may seen them recently, with a similar method of operation.
Yes, I believe this man may well have gone through the prison system at some point in time subsequent to Colette's killing, and I would appeal to those professionals to come forward to us tonight. The
taunting with the letter. One wonders if he might be watching Crimewatch and might ring you tonight, might ring you.
I would invite him to phone me.
You'd invite him. I should make the point, incidentally, that no calls to Crimewatch, we always say this publicly, no calls to Crimewatch are ever traced So if he does ring, you can't trace him,
No,
but you still want him to call. We don't record them either, incidentally.
It's an opportunity to speak to him and maybe to understand why this occurred.
Jackie, having lived with this for 21 years, what would you say to anybody who, they're not sure it's somebody, but they've just got their faintest suspicion? They think, well, I can't ring on the faintest of suspicions.
I would ask them to just find it in their hearts to phone, whether they got a slight suspicion or not. Maybe then we can put behind us, well, we won't put behind us because we never will, but at least we might get to know the reasons why and get to know with satisfaction that he's behind bars and he's not going to be in a position to do this again.
Well, you can talk openly if you call us here, or if you prefer, you can talk in confidence to any of the detectives, and there are BBC staff here too, gathered here in the studio, or you can call the local incident room on 011 59 672 954. As we've been saying, he's almost certainly reoffended over the past 20 years. Please, let's catch him now.
Still to come. The armed robbers who were sprung from custody.
The UK's most wanted art thief.
I was after John Speed's map volume from 1627.
We'll look back on 20 years of Crimewatch.
And we'll be turning the spotlight on the Crimewatch actors who went on to become superstars.
Hi, it's me. Can you pick me up? I'll see you at the school.
First, someone newspapers have called the most wanted man in Britain. His name is James Francis Hurley. He comes from Luton. He escaped from prison 10 years ago. He's been on the run ever since.
Targets have left the premises and are now on the move. They're approaching target vehicle.
April 1988. A gang in Hemel Hempstead was under surveillance by the National Crime Squad. Intelligence suggested the men had firearms, so a tracking device was planted in their car. But in 1988, the tracking technology was relatively crude.
All units, we've lost the target vehicle on tracker. Anyone got eyeball?
The gang got away, and even worse, were planning to do a robbery.
Right, the fan's there. You keep the engine running. When we get back, you get ready. Bloody forward. Okay. You ready?
Go, go,
right.
go, go, go. Go, go, go.
Get out! Hey, come on! Come on, boy! Move! Give it out! Get in! Come on! Get out, mate!
Frank Mason was an off-duty police officer.
Right, you nicked me!
Mike Zulu 1-1.
Go ahead.
Robbery in progress at Barclays Bank, Bank Court. A firearm has been discharged. Zulu Tango have been notified.
Frank was 27 and died on his way to hospital.
I was quite devastated when they told me. I just had to get out to Hemel Hempstead and find out just what was happening and so on. They told me he was killed, but I just felt I had to be there. I'm not a bit surprised that he went in and to make an arrest.
No!
Minutes later, the surveillance team heard about the robbery and assumed it was their suspects who were responsible. With a tactical firearms squad, they raced towards the gang's hideout.
On place! Show me your hand!
Just stay calm.
Driver, get out of the car! Now! Keep your hands out where I can see them and walk towards me. Stop! Get down onto your knees. Arms out. Get down onto your stomach. Arms out to your sides. Palms facing up. Cross your legs. Passenger, get out of the vehicle!
Two members of the gang were arrested in a car, and the third, James Hurley, was apprehended shortly afterwards as he left the hideout.
Show me your hands. Lay down on your fronts. Arms out to the side.
Money and firearms were recovered, and in 1989, the man who'd murdered Frank Mason was sentenced to life, with a recommendation he serve a minimum of 25 years. Two others, including Hurley, got 25 years between them. Then, 5 years into his sentence, Hurley was transferred from Whitemoor Prison to Wandsworth to be closer to his family. In those days, they sometimes used an ordinary coach, and a fellow prisoner had managed to smuggle a knife on board.
Come to the cuffs.
Stop the bus! I'm getting off!
After a struggle, the other prisoner was overpowered, but Hurley grabbed the knife and escaped. He's been on the run ever since.
James Hurley escaped 10 years ago. There's no doubt that today he looks considerably different to what he did then. We've consulted an expert with a photograph that we had from 10 years ago, and it's been aged, and he could possibly look like some of these images.
Well, this is DI Paul McGee. Paul, this was 10 years ago.
Yes.
James Francis Hurley went on the run. How can viewers help tonight?
Well, we've had lots of information about people who have seen somebody that looks very much like James Hurley, but what I'm after tonight is somebody that can give me a call and tell me where he is today, what name he's using, if he's married, if he's got children, and where we can find him so that he can be brought back to justice.
Let's just go through these images of how he might have aged now, because that was him then.
Yeah, that's 10 years ago.
And you think he may look obviously significantly different now?
Yes, I mean, he has aged. This has been a computer-generated picture, but what I want to stress is that he may actually have less hair than that, and he may well be bald, and he may well have, you know, flecks of grey in his hair.
And also, you've got information that he may in fact be wearing a baseball cap as well.
Yeah,
that's something he's quite keen on doing.
We've got information that he may well have been seen in the southern area of Spain, and that he does sport a baseball cap on occasions.
Talking of information, you've had new information in, haven't you, in this last week? What can you tell us?
Well, we've got some very exciting information that I've actually got officers working on as we speak. It's very exciting for us because it's taking us in the right direction, but unfortunately it's not information that I can talk about at the moment, but hopefully it will come to something.
Well, nonetheless, you still want viewers' help tonight. I mean, the key thing is, where is he now?
Absolutely. Somebody knows where he is. Somebody is looking after him. Maybe not the people he's friends with now, but somebody knows what name he's using and where he is.
We should just say that the pictures we were saying of how he's aged, they are on our website on bbc.co.uk/crime. So if people, I don't know, if they're going to Spain, for example, you say he's been seen in Spain, they could look at those pictures and see if they spot him there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got other information. You know, he could equally be in Southern Ireland, but he could equally be right under our noses. He's got friends and family in Luton in Bedfordshire. We've got to bear in mind that that's exactly where he could be.
OK, well, there's a reward, you should know, of at least £30,000, and Secura Court will add to that on arrest, so it's a pretty significant amount of money. Ports and airports are on the alert for James Hurley and our other most wanted criminals. If you can help, remember, it's free to call us on 0500 600 600, or you can phone the incident room on 020 7233 4128. Now here's a newcomer to the programme, DC Rav Wilding. Rav, welcome to Crimewatch.
Thanks, Fiona. It's great to be here. Right, I've got armed robbery and deception for you this month, all of it caught on camera. But can you tell us who's involved?
First, to a post office in Cambridge. Two men, armed with crowbars and baseball bats, threatened staff and customers and then raid the till. They escaped with over £20,000 and a stash of lottery scratch cards. Although their faces aren't clear on the CCTV, detectives would like to speak to this man in connection with the offence. He's seen here 5 days later, cashing in on one of the stolen scratch cards at a shop in Suffolk. Who is he? Next, to Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire and multiple deceptions. This man is at a branch of Lloyd's TSB in Aylesbury using a fraudulent driving licence to try and obtain cash. A year earlier, he was spotted at a branch of the NatWest in Abingdon using the same method. Detectives believe he has successfully carried out another 6 deceptions like these. Do you recognise him? Hereford now, and another deception. A man is seen at a branch of the Royal Bank of Scotland using a stolen bank card to withdraw cash. Can you name him? Finally, armed robbery and off-licence in Surrey. A man walks up to the counter of Wine Rack in Kingswood to buy some chewing gum. As the till is opened, he pulls out a large knife, threatens the shopkeeper, and reaches over to grab cash. He also demands a second till is open and makes his escape. Do you know who he is?
It's the usual number, 0500 600 600, if you can help with any of these cases.
And now some more most wanted. In this case, 3 men who've all absconded. They were amongst the biggest drug dealers in the West Midlands. They ran their empire from little backstreet houses in Walsall till the police had sufficient evidence to act.
Right, everyone, gather round. We just had confirmation that the targets are in situ. Here they are again, suspect photos on the board, so take the time to familiarise yourselves. This is the ringleader, Devon Anthony Daly, and we're expecting to find him in the company of Hosang Sylvester Mackenzie and this guy, Mark St Patrick Forrest. If anyone does have any questions, the time to speak up is now. Okay, prepare to RV downstairs in approximately 10 minutes.
Here at Walsall, we feel we've seized the initiative. We have a very proactive approach to our drugs investigation. It's intelligence that drives our activities, and much of the information is received from the drug users themselves, their families, and the suppliers. Without that intelligence, then we are ineffective.
This is the ringleader videoed 2 years ago, Devon Anthony Daly. And here he is on a bike outside one of his dealing dens. This is Hosang Sylvester Mackenzie, who sometimes says he's Devon's brother. And this is Mark St Patrick Forrest.
It was clear from our observations that Devon Daly, Hosang Mackenzie and Mark Forrest had a lifestyle that revolved purely around supplying of Class A drugs.
Yo! Oh, knock on my door. I'm me, man, the son. Open the door, no virgin. Open the door, no man.
All right. You need to score some gear. Let us in.
Come. West Midlands Police used classic surveillance and had some first-hand witnesses.
I mean, everything you need. You have white, brown, we do a nice rock.
I've already got 20 quid, like. I need some brown.
See there? I have plenty more of them things if you want more. You come see me, see? We have some nice things.
Following weeks, if not months of surveillance, sufficient evidence was obtained to arrest Devon Daly and his associates for their part in supplying Class A drugs, namely heroin and crack cocaine, to various members of the community of Walsall.
Come on, mate. Up you get. That's what, us, mate. That's all right. Come on, mate. Come with us. Come on.
All 3 appeared at Wolverhampton Crown Court, along with 3 others accused of similar offences. Despite vigorous police protests, all were given bail. And just before the verdict, Devon Daly, Hosang Mackenzie and Mark Forrest disappeared. Even so, the jury went on to convict all 3 of them. So where are they tonight? Devon Daly is 5'11", slim, aged 31. Hosang Mackenzie is 5'10", aged 27. And Mark Forrest is 5'8" or 9", slim and aged 23. All are Jamaican. They all have strong Jamaican accents. 0500 600 if you can help in any way, or you can call the Walsall Incident Room on 01922 439 196.
Over the last 20 years, more than 450 criminals have been convicted, thanks to people watching Crimewatch. And this rogues gallery shows some of the latest who found themselves behind bars. Clinton Williams was wanted for raping a 16-year-old girl. We featured him in July last year. And a neighbour called to say that during the programme he'd been seen running out of his flat with his bags packed. Police got another call a few days later giving an address in Dagenham where Williams was arrested. He was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years earlier this month. And this is Alan Savage. In September 2002, we reconstructed a cold case, the murder of Geoffrey Small, a newsagent who was shot in 1976. A week after the programme, Alan Savage was arrested. He then confessed to the murder, saying he'd been moved by Geoffrey Small's daughter's interview on Crimewatch. He was sentenced to life in February last year, 27 years after the murder. And 3 viewers gained the name of Raymond Francis in connection with a violent road rage attack on Mark Daniels in Kent, who'd stopped his car, blocking the road while letting his wife and 2 young children out. Raymond Francis was arrested, picked out in an identification parade by his victim and charged with GBH. He was given 7 years in February this year. In November 1995, we showed a picture of Anthony Burrows, there he is, who was wanted for an extremely violent homophobic attack on a gay man. He persuaded the victim to invite him home and then attacked him, fracturing his skull and stabbing him several times. A viewer called in with his whereabouts, and Burrows was sentenced to 12 years for robbery and GBH. And Ali Samadi was wanted in connection with the rape of a 15-year-old girl. Following our appeal in February 1999, a viewer called to say he was working at an Italian restaurant in Inverness. Another caller said he was due to leave for Spain the following morning. Officers acted immediately, and when they went to arrest Samadi, they found that his bags were indeed packed. 10 months later, Ali Samadi was sentenced to 9.5 years. And this is Johnny Doran. In October 2002, we appealed for help on the murder of 84-year-old Kenneth Pritchard, who died in front of his wife during a violent burglary at his home in Wolverhampton. The burglary was linked to at least 10 other violent attacks across the West Midlands. Several viewers rang in, giving the name of Johnny Doran. In April this year, he was sent to prison for 9 years. And Dwayne Paul, he was a wanted face in March this year. As a result of the programme, he handed himself in the next day. A month later, he was sentenced at Mould Crown Court to 4 years for supplying heroin and crack cocaine. So some terrific results there. So keep those calls coming in. Now here's DC Jackie Haynes and Chief Superintendent Jeremy Payne with the latest on tonight's calls so far.
Well, I've just been talking to Jackie Kirby, who made that emotional appeal about the death of her daughter some nearly 21 years ago, Colette Aram, and she was just 16 years old in Keyworth in Nottinghamshire. 15 minutes ago this was, and we've already had it upwards of 30 calls. 3 people think they've recognised the handwriting on the note. 4 people have suggested different names, and 2 callers think that they may have been attacked by the same man. So it's wonderful so far, but please keep ringing in. Jeremy, what have you heard?
Well, I've just been speaking to my colleagues here from Hertfordshire and London who are working together on the case of James Hurley, who he was one of the gang involved in that robbery during which a police officer was shot and killed, and he managed to escape about 10 years ago when they overcame the prison officers. Now, I've been looking around the room. There's quite a few calls coming in on this. He's been seen in various pubs around the country, and also there's a strong element of Spain in this. So keep those calls coming in if you know where he is. Now, the studio number is on the screen, and if you're watching on digital satellite TV, you can email us directly through your remote control. Just press the red button on your handset and then choose Crimewatch.
Quite remarkable, the calls coming in on Colette Aram, and remember, this is a crime that happened 21 years ago. But now 2 more of Britain's most wanted, and when you see this reconstruction, you'll understand why they're so wanted, what sort of men they are. Despite the old jokes about privatised companies running prison transports, breakouts from prison vans have actually been cut from over 200 a year to around 30, and most of those aren't violent. But until recently, a procedure at the Inner London Crown Court at Borough meant that the driver of every prison van had to get out of his cab to ring a bell. A year ago, it had consequences that were almost fatal.
Excuse me, mate. Yeah. You can tell us the date today, could you?
It's the 10th.
Cheers.
All right.
From Brixton prison, we picked up 12 prisoners and transported them to Inner London Crown Court.
So, do you think Beckham really is going to leave Man U?
For security, the driver at the front is isolated from the guard at the back. They communicate by intercom.
There you go, Rabbit. You're doing good.
we'd just come out of like Brixton Prison, sort of Brixton Hill. There was some really loud bangs.
Did you hear that?
Someone climbed onto the back?
No, it's some banging. It's at the front somewhere.
No, I don't think it was anything.
Okay.
But we just assumed, you know, just something from outside. We didn't really think at the time that it might have meant anything. I mean, I don't know if they were sort of trying to send a signal or what.
Get in the cab, open the roof hatches and let the prisoners out.
All right,
now!
all right.
Get in there! Get in! Now open them! Open them now! Open up! Come on! Get on with it! Do it now!
You get on with it! You're right!
Open up! Open the hatches!
Let me out! Let me out!
Come on, open!
Will I open?
No, the hatches aren't open!
The hatches are open!
Open the side door!
They've got guns! I've been shot!
Come on, gentlemen! Open these doors now! Get these prisoners out! Go! Now! Get on with it! Come on! Do it!
Good shit, son. You won't get hurt. Right.
Open the next one! Now! Open it! Open it! Faster! Faster! Open it! Go! Come on! Come on!
They ran into Newington Gardens and split up. Hobbs disappeared, but we know about the getaway prepared for Cunningham.
You'll be all right.
As Detective Superintendent Mick Allen, first tell us what happened to the driver. He was shot with quite a high caliber handgun, could easily have killed him.
It could have killed him, yes. It was completely disproportionate in relation to the crime that they were carrying out. It was completely
The
unnecessary.
gunman just seemed to have lost his head. I mean, it wasn't really necessary, that.
It wasn't, because they were compliant with the wishes of the gunman, so they would have opened the van.
Now, give us a description of the two guys you're most interested in, Cunningham and Hobbs.
Well, bearing in mind this is about a year old, but we don't think they'll have changed a great deal. Cunningham's 43 years old.
He's the one on the left of the
He's the one on the left. He's glass about 5 foot 11 inches tall, quite an athletic build. We think he's probably very similar to that now, whereas Hobbs, he's 44, 5 foot 10 and rather larger.
Yeah, and he'd certainly had a fair amount of weight on him. Even if he's tried to slim now, he's probably still got a bit of a beer gut on him.
I think it'd be very difficult for him to slim down. We probably think he's probably about the same, if not bigger now.
Now, the postman actually looked a little bit like him, certainly in build. You've got an E-fit of him. He doesn't look too tubby here, but you think he's got a big beer gut as well?
He has, if we can disregard the hat, because obviously we're not sure about the hat and some time forward, but he's about the same age, a very large beer gut and a big man.
Very expensive to be on the run, isn't it? Because you can't rely on ordinary people. You're having to pay double or treble for everything, and you can't earn money legitimately.
No, you can't. And bearing in mind that these men were on remand for attempting to steal £1.25 million from Securicorps, it would be very, very difficult for them to maintain the lifestyle they'd want to under normal circumstances.
You want to trace a vehicle. Now, the Evening Standard van has been traced. That's not an issue. But there's a Ford Maverick, which is one of these sort of 4x4s, a black Ford Maverick. Tell me why that was so important.
Well, as you heard in the clip, that there was some banging that was heard on the Securicorps van by the guards. We believe that was part of the sophisticated nature of the offence, that they were actually banging to alert the people in that vehicle or near that vehicle that that was the van that they should be looking for. We think that that vehicle was in the vicinity of Brixton Prison. It was then seen to overtake the Security Corps vehicle and a bus lane. It was never seen again, but we think that the two occupants of that van were involved at the early stages of this escape.
Okay, so if you knew someone with a van like that, who you can link, and we don't just want to know everybody in South London with one of those that can be traced. If you know one that was stolen about a year ago, if you can link those faces, or that the face of the E-Fit with the postman with that vehicle, let us know. Incidentally, if you're abroad on holiday, or indeed on business, look out for Cunningham and Hobbs. As with our other criminals, you can print out pictures and details of them at bbc.co.uk/crime. If you've seen them recently in Britain, well, let us know. And if you've any information on the breakout and the two who carried it out, well, we know the driver survived, but he could have been killed. Let us know who they are, and you could be in for a £50,000 reward. 0500 600 600 if you can help, or call the incident room on 020 7230 2061. And incidentally, don't forget that if you've been the victim of any sort of crime, you'd like to talk to somebody, you can always ring, in confidence, the victim support line on 0845 30 30 900.
Now, to a rather unusual criminal. He's Britain's most wanted art thief, and the value of what he's stolen amounts to hundreds of thousands of pounds. But it's not galleries that need to be on the alert. It's libraries.
Good afternoon, sir. Can I help at all?
Oh, that would be very kind. I was after 3 volumes in particular. John Speed's map volume from 1627, any of Ortelis's collection, and atlases by Jared Mercator from 1619.
Mercator, Jared Mercator.
Oh.
If you'd like to fill out a booking request form, and take a seat just over there, and I'll be over shortly.
Oh, I wonder, do you have anywhere with better natural light?
Well, there's seating over there, if you'd like to go for it. It's a bit out of the way.
He will approach a member of staff from the library
Oh.
and hand them as much as £40 or £50, saying that he's found that money on the floor in the library. And we suspect that what he's actually doing is handing over his own money in an effort to win the confidence of the staff. He uses his pleasant, amiable personality and the confidence that he displays when he deals with the libraries which he's visited. He uses that to win over the trust of the librarians.
Libraries in Scotland, across England and in Wales have been badly damaged by Peter Bellwood's activities.
The National Library of Wales in Aberystwyth identified that Peter Bellwood had visited them on 7 occasions during 2000 and early 2001. It was established that a large number of maps had been removed, and we suspect Peter of having stolen those maps.
His drive to steal has taken him abroad. We know he's been to Denmark. Here he is in a library in Copenhagen. Staff later discovered that 11 maps were missing.
I'd like to take this opportunity to bring to the attention of all the libraries throughout the country and all the dealers that are working within the antiquarian book trade, the type of character that Peter Bellwood is, in order that they can be on their guard and to be mindful of this if they should choose to buy any maps from him.
Well, Jonathan Potter, you're a map expert. What kind of maps is Peter Bellwood targeting?
Bellwood was looking for the most commercially saleable maps for which there's an international market. Maps such as we find in this atlas here. This is a 17th century Dutch atlas.
And this is beautiful, isn't it?
This is the highlight of the atlas, but this would be what he would be looking for. Other maps of interest to him would be a map like this of the British Isles, which is tremendously decorative.
And very saleable, these?
Well, very saleable. The world map would appeal to people from Japan, perhaps, or America. Really any part of the world that's represented here, even Australia, which isn't represented, there would be collectors.
And the thing is, it's not just the fact that these maps are worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, they're also part of our heritage, aren't they? And he's plundering it.
Absolutely. He was taking the highlights out of these important atlases, not just from our country, but from various other European countries as well.
Now, how can people look out either for the maps that he's selling or make sure they don't buy stolen maps?
I think you just have to be very careful about who you're buying from. Buy from reputable dealers, and be wary of anything that looks too good to be true in an odd location, whether it be on the internet or a car boot sale. Ask questions, make sure that the person who's selling to you knows what they're talking about.
And it's a lot harder now. You can't just walk into a library now and nick a map if you want to.
The libraries, since these thefts were discovered, have been much more careful about how they're letting people look at the books, supervising them when they have the books, and then making sure that the items are secure.
Okay, well, Jonathan, thanks very much. Take another look at Peter Bellwood, or Joseph Peter Bellwood, to give him his full name. He's 48 years old, he's 5'10", slim, with brown or dyed blonde hair. He's often been seen with a Scandinavian woman called Matt, who comes from Colchester. Help us put Peter Bellwood on the map before he strikes again. 0500 600 600 if you know where he is, or the incident room in Aberystwyth, 01970 612 791. Now here's Jackie for an update.
Hello, in the middle of chaos here, as you can see. Well, I'm here with the officers from West Midlands who are trying to find Devon Daly, wanted for dealing in crack, cocaine and heroin in Warsaw in the West Midlands. We've had a whole host of calls, and one, in fact, just come in now. Here it is, which I'm hoping the officers are actually going to be able to deal with tonight. DI Neil Beach is here, and he's calling his officers back in Warsaw right now. So fingers crossed that we'll have some better news for you later on.
On the first Crimewatch 20 years ago this month, in this very studio, nobody on the team knew if any viewers would call in. Thankfully, they did, and people have been ringing us with information ever since. So our 20th anniversary has been a time to say thank you and bring together some of the key people, police, victims, witnesses, viewers and programme makers who've made Crimewatch appeals as successful as they are.
Crimewatch exists to put right some of the bad things in society, but in doing so, it really is a tribute to how much goodness there is out there in the world. Could I thank you and say here's to another 20 years of Crimewatch. "20 years of Crimewatch." It's not bad for a programme that's only commissioned to run for 3 months until August 1984. Who could have imagined it would still be going strong till now? And who knows, perhaps it'll all be here in 2024. But this is how it all began.
Counting to on air is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to Crimewatch UK. Now, if you've ever worried or complained about crime, this is your chance to do something about it.
The very first Crimewatch was broadcast on June the 7th, 1984. Originally, only 3 programmes were commissioned. From the start, the aim was to bring the police and the public together to solve crimes, where for the police, the trail had gone cold.
We were somewhat distrustful of the media at that particular time. But we found out that within a year there was great potential for this programme, and within about 15 to 18 months there was not a police service in the country who hadn't either featured a crime on Crimewatch or asked to feature a crime on Crimewatch.
Yet it wasn't until the 3rd programme that the first case was solved as a direct result of viewers' calls.
A last-minute appeal today from Hampshire Police in connection with a crime which took place in the New Forest last Thursday.
We showed a van and a rough impression of the attacker. An anonymous caller identified him, and the man was arrested the next day. Crimewatch has featured almost 3,000 cases now, including most of the major crimes of the last 20 years.
The explosion came just before 3 o'clock. Most of the residents were asleep.
The Brighton bomb inquiry depends on eliminating everyone who stayed at the Grand Hotel since July the 1st.
It's now nearly 12 weeks since Susie Lamplugh left her estate agent's office to meet a client and never returned.
In 1992, another estate agent, Stephanie Slater, was showing a potential buyer around a house when he forcibly abducted her, keeping her in a wheelie bin for 8 days.
She was set free after a ransom of £175,000 was paid to her kidnapper.
Stephanie was able to give police lots of clues, but it was the Crimewatch appeal that led to the culprit. In fact, in a few minutes, you'll hear the voice of the man who kidnapped Stephanie Slater.
You got the money?
Who's this, please?
Never mind. Have you got the money?
They played the recording of his voice. I think that was probably the worst moment, because hearing it again, his voice was all I ever knew, you see. I never saw him. I can remember thinking, come on, please, somebody know him.
Somebody did know him. Susan Oak was able to connect the red car, the artist's impressions and the voice to her ex-husband.
He said, never mind, and that's when it hit me. I knew those 2 words, that was Mike.
Michael Sams is in jail tonight, starting 4 life sentences for murdering the Leeds teenager Julie Dart and kidnapping Stephanie Slater.
In February 1993, we appealed on one of the most infamous cases of the last 20 years.
Police searching for a 2-year-old boy missing in Merseyside have found the body of a child. It was lying on a railway embankment 2 miles from the shopping centre where James Bulger was last seen on Friday afternoon.
By the time we finish this appeal, somebody watching Crimewatch will have a pretty good idea of who did this to James.
When we made the appeal, we had an idea as to who the 2 boys were who'd abducted and then murdered James. We were anxious to confirm that, but equally to try and trace witnesses who could place them either at or near to the murder scene.
We showed new enhanced CCTV and gave a behavioural profile of the killers. 4 key witnesses rang in. They were able to place the 2 boys with James, and later they testified in court. The 2 boys, John Venables and Robert Thompson, were charged 2 days after the programme and were convicted of murder in November 1993.
A year ago today, an unprecedented crime took place which astonished and sickened the whole nation. On a sunlit afternoon, Lynn Russell, her daughters Josie and Megan, and their dog Lucy were waylaid as they walked home from school and then slaughtered.
9-year-old Josie miraculously survived and was able to help police and Crimewatch with the case. The response was phenomenal, with over 600 calls, including one from a psychiatrist who thought he knew the offender.
Michael Stone has been found guilty at Maidstone Crown Court of murdering Lynn Russell and her daughter Megan and trying to murder her other daughter Josie. He was given 3 life sentences. The judge told him there cannot be anyone in this country who does not understand the complete horror of the offences.
Since the beginning, the police have been a vital presence in the studio.
This is a £50 note. In fact, it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
2 months ago, a man punched a woman and stole her handbag in Hampstead, North London.
It's a very rare 1955 Vincent Black Knight worth £14,000.
So if you do get offered furs like these, fresh from the back of a lorry, give us a ring here or ring your local police.
3,
Mix and Q
2,
Jonathan.
1.
If you can help with any of these cases.
Now, it costs the country at least £2 million a year.
For 111 programmes across 11 years, Sue Cook was Nick's co-presenter.
Hello and welcome again to the programme where you can help police solve serious crimes from all over the country. There were no signs of a break-in and nothing was taken. We've now had a flood of calls on all our cases.
In September 1995, Nick was joined by Jill Dando.
Hello, I'm delighted to be joining the programme. Let me show you around our new premises. We can now handle more calls than ever. Now, an appeal to Sudanese doctors. Don't be frightened, as the officer in charge said, your information is vital. At least 10 people witnessed the events, but despite a wealth of detail, the robbers have escaped.
In April 1999, crime came very close to home.
The BBC television presenter Jill Dando has been murdered outside her London home.
This is a sombre and, for me, a surreal Crimewatch UK. For all of us here, it can be gruelling coping with crimes against victims who are strangers. It's been almost unbearable dealing with Jill's death. It's lonely here without her.
Hello, I'm delighted to be joining the programme. Now, as always, of course, the key to Crimewatch is you. Without your observations, the programme wouldn't be as successful as it is.
We launched a public appeal to create a lasting tribute to Jill and raised over £1 million. It established the Jill Dando Institute of Crime Science at University College London, researching new ways of cutting crime. In January 2000, a new face joined the programme. Welcome, and not just to you, but to a new colleague who joins Crimewatch tonight, Fiona Bruce.
Thanks, Nick. I'm very aware that I'm following on from someone who has a special place in this programme. In October 2002, following one of the biggest hunts for a serial rapist since the Yorkshire Ripper, police appealed for help to catch the M25 rapist.
The victims have ranged from the age of 10 to a woman in her 50s.
These are offences that were actually still being committed. They weren't historical. This person was a danger to the public, and we needed the exposure that Crimewatch could give us.
A viewer put the clues together and rang in. As a result, police arrested and charged Anthony Imyela.
I was actually in bed. My son took the call, and I just leapt out of bed. I was so ecstatic that he'd finally been caught.
A railway worker was today given 7 life sentences. He was found guilty of a series of vicious attacks on women and girls in a year-long campaign of terror.
What Crimewatch did for us and can do for us is it actually visualises the offences. It actually puts it clearly in the public's mind so they can remember where they were. They can give us vital information that eventually led to the arrest of the suspect.
We need the members of the public to assist us, and I would like to thank those people who watch Crimewatch and phone in with their information. Thank you so much for helping us in the important job we do of keeping the streets of this country safe.
It's not a perfect world, but it's not one to be frightened of either. So we say it tonight as we always have, and we mean it. Please don't have nightmares. 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 Whatever happens, don't have nightmares. Do please sleep well. Good night.
And I wonder if it struck you as it did me at the end of that film, that Nick, you look as if you haven't aged a day in 20 years.
I wish.
Well, just in case we do have another 20 years of Crimewatch, we've done a little image here of how you might age in the next 20 years.
For your sake, I hope that's not the face of Crimewatch in 2024. Let's see what's going on in the real world now. Jeremy.
Well, we appealed earlier for your help in tracking down Noel Cunningham and Clifford Hobbs, those 2 dangerous men who were about to stand trial on conspiracy to rob charges when they were sprung by 2 men, one dressed as a postman who shot the driver of the prison van. Been lots of calls on that now, and the officer in the case is actually on the phone to somebody right now, I understand, with somebody who knows where they are, so that looks pretty promising.
Over all the incident room numbers, can I just tell you, are on CFAX on page 621, and you can see a reminder of some of tonight's cases and crime prevention advice and a great deal more at bbc.co.uk/crime.
Over the last 20 years, hundreds of actors have taken part in our reconstructions, and we purposely choose faces who aren't well known, so you won't be distracted by them when watching. But some of our cast lists have gone on to become household names.
Will I be famous?
I was quite thrilled that I managed to get a TV job. I travelled up from London on my own and didn't know who I was meeting or where I was going, so I was quite nervous.
Hi, it's me. Can you pick me up? I'll see you at the school.
If I hear about either of you two going in that shop again, there'll be a real vicious assault. You got me?
Who are you talking to?
Do you want to come to Florida with us or not?
Well, you're not leaving me behind.
Then I'm talking to you.
When I watch Crimewatch, I think it's a great public service. I think people are much more aware of things if they actually see it on television. It jogs their memory and solve the crimes.
Help me get away from that man.
Here's another Coronation Street regular you might recognise, Ian Mercer, who played Gary Mallet.
What's this then, eh? It's an air rifle.
Don't look like an air rifle to me. Antique, is it? Come on, do you want some of this?
And this violent robber is otherwise known as Alan Igbon, who played Tony Stewart.
I'm sorry about that, lovey.
That's all right. This actress hardly recognised herself on Crimewatch.
All right.
My thoughts were, my goodness me, she does look younger. And I thought, why is she wearing those awful specs? And I think the Crimewatch programme is totally admirable, very worthy, very important to the community, because it helps to solve these important crimes which would be left unsolved. You have to be Alfie Moon, don't you? Making everyone else happy. You forget about yourself.
Yeah, but I really love her.
Then she deserves something special. She deserves the real you.
Hello. How are you? What time are you
And Daniela Denby-Ash played Sarah Hills for 4 years.
I'll leave the alarm on.
You're gonna stop avoiding me now.
I wasn't. I was just playing hard to get.
What?
Well, I could only take so much of your big-headed comments.
I am not big-headed. Well, maybe a little bit.
Fortunately, you're worth it.
What's going on?
It's all right, mate. It's been a bit of a knock-up. Bloke got a bit mouthy, but it's sorted.
Yeah, it looked like you were giving him a bit of a thrashing.
Leave it, pal.
Here's an actor who swapped crime for a more peaceful country life.
You want to tell Viv, you know, we should be on free refills. They're too small. Just one for Marlon, please.
You could always tell her yourself.
And his on-screen wife has also appeared on Crimewatch.
All right. Are you sure? Are you sure?
Excuse me.
Just a minute, love. Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you. Ah, what's the problem, love?
Can we get the police?
What's the problem?
Just get the police.
You're dealing with real people's feelings and emotions. It's not like a normal acting job, and you don't tackle it as a normal acting job.
And finally, a fellow crime fighter, Sergeant Toolan from A Touch of Frost.
If you resemble the person, with a bit of luck, it does jog people's memory. I do watch it, not only as an actor who's in a police series himself, watching other policemen work, but I do watch it because I think it just does such a tremendous job.
Fiona and I are about the only ones who haven't found soap stardom. About as far as we've made it is dead ringers. Talking of ringers, our phone lines are open until midnight tonight and from 7:30 a.m. until midnight tomorrow and Thursday.
Next month's programme will be on Wednesday, the 28th of July, when we'll be asking for your help in catching a robber who became a rapist.
We'll be back at 11:20 with Crimewatch Update, and if you can't join us then, well, do remember the crimes we feature are very, very rare. They really are, and as I've been saying since I first ad-libbed it 20 years ago, don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Good night.
Actually, Nick, it's not quite good night. You don't know this, but you have been on the programme for 20 years, and we couldn't let tonight pass without a little surprise. So we have a little present for you, don't we? Mark, this is Mark, our floor manager, incidentally, who helps us through the programme every month. Nick, a little present for you, all the presenters you work with and the team. Say thanks very much for 20 fantastic years.
Well, thank you to you, Fiona. Thank you to all of you guys. And above all, thank you, because it's you who made this programme what it is. As Fiona was saying, when we first went on air in 1984, we were so relieved to get on air because we'd had such difficulties getting the programme, getting the police to take part, that we'd had a strike, so the scenery wasn't built. We're so pleased to get on air. It was only when we were actually running that it suddenly occurred to us, what happens if nobody calls?
Well, thank goodness they did, and they still are.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome.
Good night.
Good night.